what is the most hopeful trend that you see right now in the world? And Vernon, we'll start with you, age before beauty.
Oh, what's a hopeful trend in this sorry-ass world? Now, that's a challenge, PJ. Well, I tell you, I will say that I'm not nearly as pessimistic as most people are. And partly because I've been around 9 decades. And you get to see a lot of crap if you live to be 90. And really the challenges to freedom started 10 years before I was born. I knew about it because it impacted people. Then I was born in 1927. Well, in 1917 and 18, we had the Espionage Act and the Sedition Act.
The Alien and Sedition Act all over again under President Wilson.
And so now we're seeing that again. Well, but I tell you why I'm hopeful. The Sedition Act, which made it illegal to say anything defamatory toward the United States government, the Constitution, the American flag, the uniform, the military, all of those things made it illegal. There was over 2,000 people prosecuted under the Sedition Act. Well, in 1921, less than 3 years after it was passed, it was voted down. We got rid of it. That's how fast things changed, because there was such a revulsion to the carnage of the First World War that all of that, and it was an unpopular war. That's one reason why 2,000 people went to jail because of war protests. So that we always managed to muddle through. And I think in America there really is a deep sense that of what we really stand for, and that somehow that eventually bleeds through in spite of the assaults on it, the assaults on freedom, and of course now we're having assaults on the whole idea of immigration, both legal and illegal immigration, and yet that's exactly what has made America what it is, one of the many things. And
and otherwise we would have nothing to eat except white bread and Velveeta.
Yes.
If it were not for immigrants.
Yes.
Although the Irish didn't really contribute much from a culinary point of view.
Well, now you got to be careful here. My ancestors were Irish, English and Irish, but I remember the Irish better.
Have more vegetables that have been boiled for hours and hours. So there we have the muddle through factor, always leading to hope. Yeonmi, what is the most hopeful trend you see at the moment?
So I came to America officially last January to start university in New York. I think that was when the election time. And I asked everyone, is this a normal election? Is this how things are like?
Yeah, they're all like that.
And people told me, yeah, this is really not normal. But to me, it's still great. Because I had a really bad comparison to what you have here. So, but no, but when I was in North Korea, I did not learn about any history. I learned that Kim Il-sung ended World War II, and he freed the whole humanity. And of course, I did not learn about science, like Big Bang. I learned that Kim Il-sung created a language, and it's just very different a subject. So I had to catch up with a lot of things. I read Jane Austen, of course Bastia, and it was very helpful to me that I think the idea of democracy or liberty or even human rights, even animals' rights, it's our new convention that as we moved forward, we learned all these things and we created these things. So it is quite stark to think about North Korea, how their time is going back while we are moving forward in this world. But in the big spectrum, that all the communism countries, almost all of them fair, that lie doesn't have power. And that's what I believe in, that justice will win. And that's also why I think North Korea gonna change. People will see the truth.
Well, I'm glad that you found, I mean, you kind of caught us at a bad moment. Democracy has its little ups and downs. But you found even our low ebb to be hopeful.
Still great,
Okay.
yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
That's a very good thing.
Thank you.
Tim, what about you? What do you find most hopeful?
Well, I am really optimistic about the transformations of governments because we're all interconnected and we are all distributed now. I'm optimistic about the blockchain because it's this perfect ledger, which means it can do most of the things that the bureaucrats do today. So they're very concerned about the computer, AI putting them out of jobs. Yeah, it's government jobs that can be replaced, and any job that's repetitive can be replaced. Here's the other thing I'm really optimistic about. Geographic borders are falling, and all of these guys playing the big global chess game, about who's going to be able to take who with guns, they're missing the whole battle. The game is really up in it's electronic. It's all in the cyber world, and we are now all a part of one world. So if you don't like the country you're in, you can move to another country. We're much more mobile than we ever were. Now, it's hard for you, but most of the people of the world can move. And if they can move, they're going to leave a bad government, or they're going to try to overthrow it. And even the good governments are going to have to compete for us. They're going to have to become accountable to us. And so I'm very optimistic about government right now. I'm also very optimistic about wealth, global wealth, because we used to carry around shells, and then it was like precious metals, and then it was a promise of a precious metal, and then it was like a promise of Federal Reserve note. Well, now we're one level more abstract than that with Bitcoin, and we can now, if you guys are really freedom fighters, you should all be owning Bitcoin. It is the free currency. It is out there, and you can go from country to country, and you can pull down your Bitcoin off the cloud. This is a new world. Sure, there's uncertainty. A lot of people used it for nefarious purposes, but this is fantastic for anybody who's thinking for liberty and freedom and for global wealth. We're now able to tap into 4 billion people that were unbanked before, and now they can be a part of the global economy. This is really amazing.
Well, your answer happens to lead right into my specific question to you, so I'm just going to keep with you because one of the things I wanted to ask you was that things like Bitcoin, the whole sort of tech world and the computer world, does this digital enterprise, does this offer, well, I know you're going to say yes, but I'd like to know what kind of yes. Does this offer special advantages to people in the underdeveloped world, partly developed places around the world, people who have historically lacked capital, access to markets, marketable goods and services?
Sure. Yeah, of course it does. Because if you have $7.33, this is worth trying. Go to the bank. Go to Bank of America or Wells Fargo or Citibank and walk in to the teller and say, I'd like to set up a bank account for $7.33. They will shove you out the door. And the reason they'll shove you out the door is that it costs them $200 just to regulate your account. And so if that's going to be the case, then the unbanked are farther and farther away from that first rung of the ladder. And Bitcoin suddenly just cleared the decks for that and made it so anyone can participate in this global economy. And you see the bankers starting to notice that that people are moving. I was talking to my wealth advisor, and he said, I was selling a bunch of stuff.
I have a poverty advisor.
I was selling some stock, and he said, "Oh, you're moving it to crypto too." And they are panicking, and so you're seeing a concerted attack on Bitcoin going on right now. Watch for it, and they're saying, this is a fraud. This is whatever. Short the banks, guys.
Short the banks. Okay, there's some more. So, Yeonmi, it was a very interesting part of your story was that, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I understand that one of your first glimpses of freedom was a pirated copy of the movie Titanic.
Yes.
And that this really changed your thinking. Mm-hmm. And, I was thinking, well, there's, as great cultural milestones go, about 2/3 of the way through, I was yelling at the screen, "Send down for more ice." Wasn't a masterpiece, but it got me thinking about how such a relatively minor thing like that could have such a major effect. And can you give us maybe some other examples of just how such a minor glimpse into another world can help change people's thinking?
So, thank you. So in North Korea, we don't have magazines. I did not know the word of magazine. So when I came to America at the Walmart, I was very shocked at how many types of magazines. And I was even more shocked when I heard the magazine called the Playboys. Really? So we have none of those. I did not know what designer was. We don't know even like celebrity names. We don't have religion. Our religion is our dictator, like Kim's. They are our gods. And there's no outside information. We have only one channel on TV, but that we don't really have 24 hours electricity. So even that we cannot really see. But even if you see, it's all propaganda. And as I said, they don't teach us Shakespeare. We don't know what Romeo and Juliet is. The concept of love in North Korea is a very shameful thing. And they don't even teach us what the meaning of love, word meaning is. So if you have read the book 1984 by George Orwell, he talks about the language, how important it is to know the language. That means you know the concept. But in North Korea, they purposely didn't make the words like love. We only understand love something as we love government. We love our Kim Il-sung, but we don't know that I can say to my mother, I love her. We don't have the word for human rights and like liberty. There are so many words that we don't have. So in that situation, the outside information is the only way we get to know what's happening outside of the world. So in North Korea, they tell us, the rest of the world is like disastrous. They are like American monsters, and the people are starving. The capitalism is such a bad thing, but we are so lucky to be in North Korea. So when I was young, our people somehow they smuggle this information from China, and they see these things. And sometimes people even get executed for watching a movie. But even that, we still risk our life to know the truth. And that, for me, was the movie that gave me some taste of freedom was actually Titanic. I mean, when I was watching Titanic, I was really thinking, why someone made a movie out of this such a shameful story? Why there's no propaganda in the movie? And I thought, really, the DiCaprio and the movie director got executed. So I was really thinking, when I escaped, that's the first thing I checked. Is he alive? My drag is alive. And so, but this information gives them that we can die for something else other than the regime. To me, that dying for the dear leader was the greatest thing that I could do with my life. That become a revolutionary, not being an individual. But in that movie, that people can love somebody else and they can die for it, they can value different things. So my mother was really big fan of pro wrestling, WWF. So I literally thought, men in America are that muscly. And when I came here, I was like, what's wrong with you guys? This is not how I thought about Americans. So even though these little pieces of information that North Korean people might not able to comprehend, whole thing that how much we have in this world, but it still gives them the idea that there's something might be wrong, and they might be able to live like us someday. So I think this is gonna be the game changer when we free North Korea. So even imagine right now that there's a miracle that we remove the dictator, we remove those power controlling group, but the people believe that Kim Jong-il can read their mind, and they believe that we are monsters here. What are we gonna do? So the most important thing to me is that free their minds, because North Korean people are not only imprisoned physically, but they are imprisoned mentally, they're emotionally. So there are a lot of NGOs are doing this. During the Soviet Union, we send balloons to each other, leaflets, share the information to each other. There are people smuggling information to North Korea right now. So I hope you can all involve with this some way, because this is something that we all can contribute without being involved in politics.
That's great. I mean,
Thank you.
Thank you. We underrate the power of our popular culture, and I'm going to go back and watch Titanic with more patience. My wife and I were dating then when the movie came out, and it was like, she's in tears, and I'm going, I know how this ends. Maybe this time I'll have a little more respect for it. And Vernon, to round up the evening, you've done all this wonderful work about really the power of entrepreneurship, the power of the market. And are there limits to the power of the market? And are we anywhere near or even within shouting distance of
No, there's no limits. I think that, markets are the foundation of specialization. The fact that, we can all go off and do our own individual, engage in individual activities that suit our tastes and that suit our skills and from the world economy, earn income and buy everything else we need that's produced by others. You know, we all, as Hayek once said, we're all vitally dependent upon the knowledge that we don't have,
That's
that
right.
other people have. And we benefit from that knowledge primarily through the pricing system. That's the system that organizes all this dispersed activity to make us better off, and yet there's nobody in charge.
Right, right.
And no, I see no end to that. It's getting, and now with technology, you see, and the growth of the social media, isn't it interesting that with all of the markets and development and specialization and wealth creation, the demand for sociability was never greater. We still need each other. And so
It's a lonely planet out there.
that's right.
Yeah.
And the social media has taken off in ways that you see, and that's a way of linking us together in a more personal way.
Sometimes a little too personal.
Yeah.
Anthony Weiner found out.
So I don't see any limit. In fact, it's
So where would you say a couple of places are? We'll kind of wrap up the evening with this, and so that everybody can go get drunk, as befits the libertine side of libertarianism. Where are a couple of places where markets could be applied in the field of things government controls? Where could markets? Where are a couple of places markets could be used to our advantage?
Oh, I think the interstate highway system ought to be privatized. You know, it's a. You know, the governments can build highways, but they can't fix the potholes.
No, no, they can't.
And so, but just think about it. You see, building a highway to the average congressman or senator, that gets a lot of publicity, brings money into his jurisdiction, but they don't think ahead about how to maintain.
Oh, I think it's worse than not thinking ahead. I think they deliberately don't do. You see it all over Latin America, Brasilia, all these incredible constructions that have not been maintained at all. And that's because all the public gratitude, all the hero worship, and all the glory
is in the front end.
Is in the front end,
yes,
right?
And
because it's not a business, they deliberately ignore the maintenance budget.
Yeah.
So no, I think it's worse than negligent. I think it's wicked.
No, I agree. And you know, we've got, of course, gasoline tax is supposed to be for maintaining the road system.
Right.
But they spend it on other things.
Bicycle racks.
Yeah, because that's a fund that it's easy to raid and use for other purposes.
Yes.
And so now we got to raise, in California, we got to raise the gas tax to do what we already should have funded, namely fixing the highways. So I would privatize them almost overnight. They would become toll roads.
Yeah.
And I think there's all kinds with private capital and entrepreneurship. People can find all kinds of innovative ways to use that right away.
In the Italian autostrada is privatized, and when you pull off into the service station, instead of getting a lot of the same hideous food that was at the last rest stop, you get real Italian cooking and a glass of wine.
Yeah,
you know,
of course.
and you can spend the whole afternoon at the highway rest stop. Comfort and delight. Well, thank all of you very much, and all of you even more. I think it's been a wonderful evening. I can only speak for myself, but I hope I'm speaking for the rest of you.